Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for coming tonight. I'm super excited to have the pleasure of introducing our presenter today. My name is Scott Johnson. I'm one of the board members here for the Finger Lakes Boating Museum. Tonight's probably going to be one of my favorite lectures. Kayaking, canoeing has really taken off. It's something anybody can go pick up a boat, throw on top of your car, and as you can see from the Finger Lakes pictures, there is water everywhere that anybody could access. We did this lecture last year, had a different presenter, it was very successful. When it came up again this year, tonight's presenter, Adam Dwyer, popped right into my head. I've had the privilege of coaching Adam, now I officiate wrestling with him. He is a physical education teacher in Alfred, and for the last 4 years, he's had a kayak on top of his truck. It doesn't matter if it's snowing, if it's raining, if it's deer season, turkey season, track season. Adam's got the kayak up there for any and every opportunity. Part of the intimidation of canoeing is kayaking is not knowing where to go. So the idea of where to do and partake in this sport, Adam is the clear choice because he's been there, done that, and here to share those experiences with you in the hopes that you can take that information, get out and enjoy the outdoors as much as possible. So without any further ado, Mr. Adam Dwyer, our presenter.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, guys. All right. First off, I got into kayak 4 years ago. I was in college finishing my grad work, and I just got back from a camp in the Adirondacks, and I got on this sweet long boat. It was a 14-footer with a rudder on the back, and I was like, this is heaven. And I was like, you know what? When I get done with my master's, I'm going online, I'm getting a nice boat. People are like, oh, you go down to, Central Tractor, Walmart, and get whatever you can, which you can do. But I'm like, no, I knew what I wanted. And I went all in on that first purchase, and it was like the best gift to me, and since then I've been hooked. Super psyched to be here. I love Keuka Lake. I paddle here all the time, and I've gone past this awesome building so many times and been like, what is that? Well, now I'm here and I'm presenting in it, so that's even cooler. So thank you for coming tonight. Hope that I broaden your horizons on where we go around here. There's so many awesome places, and we could be here all night talking about all the nooks and crannies, but I'm gonna give the best I can for you in about an hour. All right, so let's explore. We'll go to our first slide. We'll talk a little bit about kayaking in general at first. Who here already kayaks or paddles a boat? Okay, so everyone's on the same page here. So I'll just kind of brush through this real quick. All right, so we all know that the Finger Lakes region is just right here at the 2. It's heading right between I-390, north and south, and then 81. All right, so right there is our sandwich of awesomeness. We have all these awesome Finger Lakes, and we're so lucky to have it. So people are like, where are you from? I say Finger Lakes region, and they go, oh, that's awesome. And it's like our Adirondacks, People think Adirondacks, Catskills. Well, Finger Lakes region is our trademark. Thankfully, we were here. And so since we all know what those are, let's move on to the next slide. All right, so different areas of water are going to require different kind of boats. There are some streams that you can get into, inlets that flow faster, that might be a little tighter, where you might want a shorter boat. Maybe you want a longer boat for those big lakes like Seneca and Cayuga, and you're out in the big water. You want that tracking, you want, maybe you just want the stability, maybe you want 12 feet and it's a little bit wider. It's up to you and your preference, but just kind of knowing what kind of boat you're riding and what you're wearing before you go out there, and what you're trying to do is really helps about, getting the most out of your experience out here in these awesome lakes. So another thing too is all seasons. So if you want to sit on top, of course, sit on side. Sit on top is going to be more limited to warmer parts of the fall through the summer, of course, later spring, just because of obvious reasons you're going to get wet. I personally like to sit inside. In a canoe you can take any time as long as, of course, you're prepared. If you went in, you're close to shore, all those other things. But let's talk about where we're going to go. I won't bore you guys about where you're going, what you're doing. So, right to the next one. Okay. One thing is a little bit safety. Wherever you're going, think about what your life jacket does for you, whether it puts you straight up. Is it bulky? Can you paddle it for a long time? If I'm in like a stream, of course, or an inlet that's, of course, like waist high or something like that, obviously I'm gonna relax and take it off. But anytime I get where I'm like a chest deep or more, especially out in big water, always wearing it, especially crossing lakes. And if I were to get knocked over by a boat, I'm always gonna think, all right, if I'm not unconscious, am I going to lay upright or what? So I have a couple of kinds of PFDs to make sure that happens. Class 1 and 2 are gonna take care of you. The type 3 is gonna be more so like manual, voluntarily keep your face up in case you were to be unconscious or something like that. And then class 4 is more like your flotation, float. The Sheriff Patrol will ask, you know, if you're at a motorboat, like, do you have this? Yes, I have that. The whistle, the flare, all that stuff. That's part of that. So that's not so much to kayaking and canoeing, but it could be useful to have, especially in a canoe. Class 5 is one of those like fishing kind that you pull a cord and it blows up. Those are useful to have too. If you don't want something so bulky, you know. I don't really trust in those personally, but it's up to you how you want to wear it. Some people think it's cool looking, I don't know. Cool looking over performance, a different thing. So, all right, a whistle, of course, always. I have a nice Fox 40 from reffing, or one's clipped on my PFD, so it's just good to get awareness of people if you're in trouble, you know, giving those big loud blasts and it's carrying. Bilge pump or a plug, check your plugs. Bilge pumping, always have that on the boat, especially the ones that have your storage bays inside, because you're not gonna get that water any other way, especially if you fall out of the boat. And always have a plan, know your boat, where you're going, when you're gonna get back, who you're going with, so all that jazz. So now I cover that. We'll pass through this. We already know about, I know my kayak stays in my truck, that's for sure. One thing I know is very important to all the Finger Lakes is, you know, it's so nice to visit all these places, but especially when we're talking about maybe going the next day or 2 days later, 3 days later, we're talking about moving in different aquatic species. There's blue-green algae in Canisius and Honeoye often, and some other lakes too. Sometimes it shows up in Keuka, not often though, but things like that can get easily transported if you just brush through it and it goes to other lakes and it causes a lot of environmental problems. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here, knowing just to clean your boats off, high pressure water, or leaving it out in the sun for a few days, getting all mud off, wiping it off. You know, if there are clumps of it on, other weeds in the species, instead of going there in your book and being I guess a botanist or whatever it is to look into that, just, you know, get it off, you know, knowing that it's not an invasive species going with you. So just drain your boats and dry them. Hydrilla is a big problem, I know, at this lake, and zebra mussels as well, especially at Canisius. So that's just things that kind of spread out to other people. You guys probably already know of these things, you're lake goers, but, you know, just kind of being an advocate for your own place is huge. It's something I've really learned very quickly, that, you know, especially with social media, people are like, oh, these awesome places, and I can get a boat at Walmart, and I can go there, and I can do this, but do they think about, you know, all the awesome places they're going and what they're bringing with them, you know? So just kind of educating other people, kind of leave no trace for kayakers, I guess. So, all right, the Finger Lakes, as they are from above, 11 lakes as long as 38 miles or 40 miles, I think Cayuga's 40 miles. And as short as 2. And something is also so very special and different about each one. Some offer some awesome inlets. Some are just good as they are. Some don't have cottages. Some have cottages. Some have big water. Some are just really small and tight knit. So that's what I love about the variation of the Finger Lakes. So we'll get into our first one, which I believe is going to be Canisius. All right. So Canisius Lake. I like to launch down the very south end. Right here, there's like a little walk-in spot, and it kind of drops down, and then it's flattened out like almost a little bit of almost like a floating clay bay, all right? Back in there is really neat, and especially when the water's high, you can get back in there for like, I think at least a half mile. So that's a nice little straight, little bit windy path. And there's all kinds of plant life and, you know, animal life going back there. You may see eagles, osprey. You may see maybe some beavers from the other side. Beyond here, there's a wildlife management area. And in the spring, when that's really flooded up and there's not a lot of vegetation in it, you could portage over this little dam spot and then just get in there and float around. I haven't done that yet. It's on one of my list to dos, but I know you can do it. And so I hope that you guys think to do that too, because I think it'll be pretty neat, and especially a place where no one really thinks to go on that lake. So I'm like, going to Canisius Lake, like, cool, go to the beachcomber. And it's like, no, I'm going to go float in the spot where no one is. There's all these animals around me where no one even thinks about going. So what a cool loop would be coming through here and out of that channel and paddling up along this rim over here, crossing, with caution. Right over the beachcomber, you get a nice lunch. They have volleyball games going on often. They have a volleyball pit out there. It's really nice. And they also have entertainment often. So I think every Friday or Saturday night they have some kind of band out there, and it's like a stage. It's not like you're crammed in a corner and you got to hear the band in your face and try to eat your cheeseburger at the same time. It's like very opening out there. So I kind of like going to Canisius every now and then and thinking, hey, there's a band over there. I'll paddle. I'll come back out. Bring a friend, we'll go there, have one libation, go back in the channel, and we're out, you know. So that's always fun. I've not paddled out of the north end yet. It doesn't really intrigue me as much. I really love like the neat little channels that a lot of these lakes have, but that's just kind of another place for exploration. Maybe it's just where it's easiest to access from you. Maybe you're from up above Lakeville up there. It's just easy out of Livonia, just pop in. But you have 4 launches, all of which are free. So out of that Pebble Beach recreation area, there's 2 off of that, actually the recreation area. And then there's also a little bit of a small kind of just, what do I want to say, like I guess like a thumb inlet out there that you can kind of access the lake out that way, kind of an easy way in. So let's see, I think I covered Canisius. It's a nice lake, especially looking from the south end, look to the north. You get a nice little crash and hill action up there. And it's just one of those details about the Finger Lakes, which is also awesome just to sit there and on float. So, all right, next one. Yes, sir.
Is Canisius the one that where motorboats are not allowed?
No, they are allowed actually. Yep. They've had a lot of issues with the blue-green algae in the south end, so I'm always looking at different updates of the DEC when I want to go there, so that I'm not, you know, getting myself caught up in that. But it's definitely neat. Too bad this photo didn't come out a little better. This is the nice like crashing hills are coming in. And actually, I sat in there last year, 4th of July, actually, Jerry McEnany's son, I don't know if you guys know Jerry McEnany, I kidnapped him, he just got out of pharmacy school, and I'm like, we're going over there, and I think it's the 3rd of July, they do the Ring of Fire. So we sat deep in that channel and watched it all happen from out of there. So we're tucked away, and no one even thought to do something like that. I was like, this is so cool. We had lights on and on our boats, and it was just really cool experience to see all the things going on, all the craziness going on out there. But where we were, it was nothing but peepers and fireworks. So that was pretty awesome.
Do you find that Canisius is busy?
I think it can be kind of busy. So the crossing sometimes is a little bit sketchy. So when I'm crossing something, I like to be at least another person. I'll never cross alone, like ever. If I had 2 or 3, I feel a lot more better about it. 4, I think, is good company, as everyone can stay on the same pace. But while you're paddling over, it's not so much a sprint over, just like letting those paddles up in the air, just kind of like little windmills, and then they can see that. Catches their eye a little better, especially if you have a white, a light green, a blue, a bright blue. You know, those kind of help a lot, you know, as far as getting visibility. I hate to be a statistic or a newspaper article, you know. So, not to put fear in everyone, but you know, it's good to think about those things before you do it. If you talk about loop and crossing a middle part of a water, because a lot of boats do come out of that end, and they come in. It's beachcomber central area somewhat, so. You know, you gotta pick your days. I wouldn't go on a Saturday doing that, that's for sure. Thankfully I'm a teacher, I can do it midweek, so. Or afternoon on a Friday, so. All right, we'll head over to my favorite lake ever. I just got in my boat, I just got my new job, my principal, who's super outdoorsy and really cool guy. I said, I'm gonna take my cousins over to Hemlock. He goes, oh yeah? Oh, that's so cool. There's no cottage on it. I haven't been there in a long time since my dad took me fishing. But that was the days where like, I was almost bored because there were no cottages, there's no boats around. We weren't doing any kind of water skiing, or we weren't doing any kind of tubing or anything like that, you know, at that age. Or now I'm like, this is my playground, you know? So, I go there, I bring my cousins, and the first thing we do, we grab a couple of PB&J, sit on my tailgate, driving a Ford Ranger at the time with this rigged up rack on it. We just piled in that thing, and the first thing we see are these eagles flying around top of us, and I was like, so awesome. It was like first legitimate, sight of an eagle like out there doing something that I love. I've seen them before passing the Elman Dam where I go to school every day, but just to be out there like that was just really neat, especially with my cousins and them. They knew it too. They knew the sound of it, and they're like, eagle. I'm like, so there's a channel in the south end that I have actually explored a little bit more. It goes about at least a mile back there, and it winds like past 90. It just goes back and forth, and it intestines way back into spring water. And then it comes to a log jam. And I was like, what's beyond that log jam? You know, I wish I could just get a chainsaw or something and just get this little spot where you can get around it and keep going. Well, a friend of mine who's a very ambitious person, we went out there in the early April, the first weekend of April, and there was actually snow that morning. We just skirted the shore, got out there, and the water was higher than ever was that I've seen it on that channel. So at certain spots, we were like brimming this little path, the canal back there. And we get to that log jam, and we can see over top where it's just over the other side. Usually the vegetation is so high, you think it's a jungle back there, you don't know which direction it would even take, you know? I could have looked at like Google Maps, but part of me just wanted to keep it an adventure, I guess. And so we portage over that, and we get in there, and it goes back a whole nother, I think, almost another quarter mile. And we actually paddled up over a couple log jams from the beavers in there, and coming back down out of them was a lot of fun. So I think earlier in the presentation, one of the first pictures there was like me going over one of them with a paddle in front. That was that day. But the look coming out of this channel and looking up on the hillside, there's a little barn up there, is one of the coolest scenes. I don't care what day it is. It could be snowing, raining, hailing. I don't know if you all got a helmet on, but looking up at that is just one of the nicest things. It's like, you know, and even coming back through there, you'll have red-winged blackbirds like by the fleet just chasing you down and just flying around you and landing next to you. And one of my favorite birds to check out. And you can take a long boat down there. I like to have my rudder on, so I kind of turn around, but there's just not much to just get around with a 14-foot boat and still be comfortable, even though those turns are pretty tight. It's pretty deep, and there's enough width where you can turn around if you have to. So that's always a nice paddle getting in there. And the next thing is I just explored about 3 weeks ago was I paddled up the middle part of Hemlock, and I had never really even thought to really just stretch this out, and I want to paddle it all in one day for like for a whole perimeter. But right here is a thing called Rob's Trail, and it links Canisius Lake, and that's a new trail that opened like 2 years ago. It's painted out like a Finger Lakes trail, and it is gorgeous. It's an amazing trail. Like I'm walking it, and I'm thinking this is like some kind of single track bike trail down south. It's just perfectly packed in, it's perfectly placed, the turns are nice, and there's a nice waterfall halfway up this hill. Here's your road right there. I think I don't know, is it 77? I'm not sure.
15.
Is it 15A? Okay, way up. So 15A is right up there, and you're right between halfway. There's a nice couple waterfalls through there, and you can just pull off and check that out, and it still had an ice chunk on it like 3 weeks ago, so that was pretty cool to see. It was one of our first warm days. I wasn't so apprehensive about wearing my wet gear going up the side of that shoreline. But that was really neat, and I'd like to connect the two. Paddle is a thing called canoe landing right up here, and you just jump over, you jump right there, you leave it all the way over to the top to Canandaigua, and there's quite a steep climb on this way. If you're coming back up over Canandaigua Hill there, that's quite a climb. But the view is pretty awesome, the trail's really nice, and it's well marked, and I think it just kind of extends your paddling day if you want to do a whole day long excursion or no one who would like to do something like that. But there's a lot of beauty too along the side of these shorelines. A lot of this cliff kind of crashes into the lake, and you would think it looks like mellow when you first look at it, but really a lot of it looks like, you know, a big stone sand wall along the side of you, just kind of like this you're sitting next to. So definitely a lot more to explore than the channel in the south end. I'm not paddled the north end yet, but I think next time I do, I'm going to drop in there and then get the whole Rob's Trail and come back out the north so that I've actually launched there as well. And we all know that this lake here there's no cottages on it. That's one big detail I kind of left out. That's what I absolutely love about it. Everything just roams as it can. There's 2 summers ago, a big, huge bear, like twice this table, I think, was swimming across it. And I was there like 2 days before, and another friend of mine was there that day at a different end. And it was right along, like, I think the Rob's Trail region, and it was swimming right next to them, right in front of they got a video, it's on Facebook or somewhere, probably on YouTube now. But this big black bear was swimming right in front of this guy's nose of his kayak, and I thought, like, if you're gonna see a bear like that, you want to be in a kayak, because all it's thinking about is getting to the other side. It's like, there's food over there, there's shore, you know. So it's fair to Midland, and you're just like, you know, that's cool. Definitely wish I were there that day. But yeah, Hemlock Lake is amazing. The water levels fluctuate a lot. August, it sometimes get pretty low. Rochster's taking water out of this as a reservoir. There's no swimming in it, no more than a 10-horse boat in it. So they're pretty protective of it. And the DC is always there checking the log or checking the launch, especially during hunting season. I'm kayaking during duck season in the fall, and they're sitting there on the shore just seeing if they're gonna fire more than, what is it, 3 times. They're just really up on it there. So it's very protected. And if you get over to in this side of the channel, there's gonna be signs like do not enter beyond this point, because they're actually protecting where those eagles are nesting. So that's also really cool too. They're there to stay, and no one's gonna mess with them. So, all right, goodbye Hemlock Lake. Hope you guys see it soon.
Go on Hemlock Lake. You don't need a permit to go on Hemlock Lake?
No, you do not. I think you used to,
Okay.
a long time ago, but I think you're obviously good now, for sure, 100%.
They're good put in at the south.
They're great put in, yeah. It's just very flat. And I almost think there is another canoe walk-in if you wanted to, in the very, very southest, most end of it. But that's to be a hike in if you really want to go that route. But this launch here is perfect. There's a nice drive around for a trailer, very accessible. So, Canisius Lake, it's a neighboring lake. The same thing, same protocol here. 10-horse boat, no swimming. The water is clear as ever. You'd think there are zero mussels in it, but it's just like really deep. And it's gorgeous. The water usually stays pretty high in it. Every now and then it fluctuates, but it doesn't really matter because it's kind of just a big, huge, I'd say like almost like a giant pond. The whole perimeter is like 4 miles. It's a great place to take people who really haven't gone yet. I took a couple here last June. They went out and got some kayaks. They just bought a motorboat 2 weeks before. They're like, oh boy, we got the awesome summer. We're gonna get this motorboat. We got this Bayliner 19. It's gonna be the best summer ever. And then they went and bought kayaks, so they wanted those because they have a campsite nearby. Is it Holiday Hill Campground or something like that? Something like that. And so they're close by, and they're like, we should have some kayaks, something to do over there. So I take them. They're like, we're going for a maiden voyage at Canandaigua. You want to come? I'm like, sure, I'd love to. So we go there, and they figure out that this guy's a big man. He's 6'3", and he's in a 10-foot sun dolphin. And so it's like the back hatch is like kissing water a little bit, and his wife's fine. She's great. She's like short like me, and that's cool. But he had a blast nonetheless. So we paddled probably only 2 miles. We just enjoyed ourselves. We had a great sunny day, and we get done with it. And he's like, "I'm going to sell these. I'm going to sell the boat, and we're going to buy nicer kayaks, and we're going to be kayakers." And sure enough, they did. They sold their motorboat literally within a week. And they went and bought nicer kayaks up at Field and Stream, and now they're kayakers. They go to their campsite, and they care less to go anywhere else but Hemlock and Canisius. So that's what I love about it too, is there's no registration, there's no maintenance, there's no, who doesn't like a nice ride motorboat? But if you can just get in the water and enjoy it for just being there, this is the way to go. There's a lot of moonlight paddles hosted on there. Actually, it was one back on April 28th. That was a very rainy day, and it was also a high of 50 that day, so I don't think that happened. But Canisius Lake Outfitters, a guy named John Kenny, he lives right off like the lake, east. Yeah, it'd be East Lake Road. Yep, and he's got a spot there. And I pulled in one day, really cool guy, very nice. He invited me in for a sandwich as I got talking to him about kayaking and like this. And he offers, all the time, he says these events, he puts a tiki torch at the launch, and all these people come from all over the place. They get out there, they float till midnight or so. I took my cousins out, they were in 7th and 8th grade last summer, and that was us right here, just watching the sun go down and the moon coming up behind us, and really, really cool night. As you can see, very bright out there, and it's a perfect lake because it's not too big. There's no motorboats, where the shore is. And it's just, it's a perfect situation. There's no cottages, so even though sometimes it looks nice, the cottages at night, along the shore, but that's amazing when it's just like black and blue basically. So that is Canandaigua in a nutshell. It's just a really, really nice spot. 3 launches, one in the north end, the one I was talking about, the south end where he puts the tiki torches, and there's also a canoe carry-in path that's, if it's, all the other launches are, booked, it's nothing but like probably, 50-meter walk-in from the road. So it's a nice beaten path, so no big deal. Sometimes another launch he had, or another paddle he had like a little mini buffet down there. He had a fire going, and all this other stuff. So it was pretty cool. He does some neat things. He is on Facebook with his Canisius Lake Outfitters, so that'd be a page to look into for events when things are going on. All right, we'll just go over to its neighbor, Honeoye. Next one. All right. The thing is, I have not even paddled this lake yet, and I'm like, how have I not paddled it? I guess I just spend my time at my favorites, but now I'm just starting to check them off. I think there's 4 lakes I haven't done yet, but I have biked above it on Harriet Hollister Park, so that's kind of a cool extension of the day. So if you wanted to get out of the boats and go up there and walk around, or if you wanted to bike around, really nice overlook. There's a bench behind us. You could sit there and park your car with your boats on it and just go, I just paddled that, you know? And it's just kind of a neat spot to be, to hop, skip, and a jump out of there. So 2 launches. They have a recreation center area up above on the top where you could drop in there. And then the south end, they have the DC launch. And I guess it's free to boat anyone who has just a regular car. So if you put your boat on your car in any capacity, you're good. But if you have a trailer, then they're going to charge you, I think it's $7. Unless you have an Empire Pass, which I just got that last year, and I think it's a cool thing. I go Letchworth often, and Stony Brook take my cousins, and it's just like, you're in. And if you're out there a lot, it's worth it, $65. So, you know, just that card goes with you from anyone. I could give it to you guys for Letchworth this weekend if you wanted. You know, it doesn't be like it's tied to my name in my car. So, if you wanted to do that. This lake is pretty shallow for the most part. I think its deepest depth is only 33 feet or something like that, maybe 30 to 40. It's not entirely long, but it's good enough to get the edge off if you wanted to go north to south, because you could coordinate if you wanted to go from here and up and get the whole thing. There's a small inlet in the bottom that I'm aware of, and I'm not sure if it's healthy or not, if it's been grown in. I know it wasn't big. It's definitely not wider than this room. Maybe it's more skinnier. But I've been told, I read a book, Western New York Paddling and Paddling the Finger Lakes by, who was it? It's at the very end. The Freeman, yep, that's what it was, yep. So there's river otters out there, so I'd like to check that out sometime. But I can only imagine that view sitting at the north or south end and looking back where our bikes are parked is probably a really sweet view to take in of the area. So, you know, maybe this thing doesn't have a big long channel like Hemlock. Maybe it's still got cottages on it, but it's still a really cool spot to be. Yeah, so a lot of different opportunities there for something different. If you want to get, you know, both things out of you, you've been sitting down for a while and paddling, you give your legs a workout too, up on top, and then you can look down in. So that is Honeoye. And they sometimes have some blue algae issues in the south end as well, so it's something to look out for. It's usually in August, late summer, that's when things arise. And I think there's a lot of zebra mussels there too, so just be careful with your foot and putting in there. So moving on to our next guy, which I believe we're going to Canandaigua? Yes, I love Canandaigua Lake. It's probably my second favorite at this point. I've done a lot of paddling here in the last couple years. You got long shoreline, long crashing shoreline, beautiful stuff for your views, sitting inside it in the south end or north end, whichever way you want to look. You got 6 total access points, and you got 2 at Americans with Disability Act regulated paddle launches. So you just get in there, they got the wheels, and just nice kind of way to get in, especially when the water's colder. You know, you don't have to worry about all that. You stay dry as long as you stay up. We just recently did Naples Creek, which has been pretty high up. We didn't have any fissures going on right there. So a friend of mine works for the DC. He was like, let's jump in here and we'll get to the West River. I'm like, all right. We had 3 portages, not too bad. You know, just a little drag around, drop in. But it was one of the coolest ways of entering because it really extended our day. And you know, because I go from there to go to the big water and see that, and then take the West River back out and went all the way up to Middlesex almost on the other end. And it was just a really nice paddle. We initially thought to just go out to the big water and go to the DEC launch, the real one, the big one by the sawmill, which is right, let's see, hard to see, but you know, that south end there. Just park there and walk back to our trucks, no problem, probably a mile away. but we got pretty ambitious, and we were okay with walking that old rail bed back in our muck boots all the way back to our truck, which was 2.5 miles away. But it made for an awesome time, and we didn't care. So we hit our boats, and my friend actually had a bike lock. We put it around this tree way out there in about 3 foot of deep of water, and because he had a long chain on it, and just threw it out there. And we went and got him back in later. So I didn't care about going wet because I was getting in my truck and getting different shoes on and everything else. So no one was taking our boats, and we had a super adventurous day out there. But you can take that West River way out there, especially now, probably through July. Then after that, it gets to be pretty dry and soupy, and the duckweed really gets in there, and all the vegetation comes up, and it gets kind of tough to paddle. I tried to paddle it a year ago in August, and I probably got as far as where my kayak's sitting right there into it from the south end. So definitely got to hit it in its prime, but when it's awesome, it's really, really good. Here's the Naples usually the fishing access site. You got a lot of guys casting out here on the other side of the West River. So you can go from launch to launch, which is really cool, and the way they design that is for someone to get in and out if they really had to, utilize something like that. Definitely courteous of them. So we were paddling, the day it was really soupy, we went back out in the big water and just did a loop, and we saw this juvenile, not golden eagle, looked like a golden eagle, bald eagle come in and swoop down, and I got a clip by clip shot of it coming in and swooping. I don't think it got anything, but it was really cool. And what the bald eagles do is they dive a lot to impress their mothers or their parents all the time. And so then they also got to practice at it too. So maybe they're not catching a lot, but they're casting really well, So that was pretty neat. And just looking at those crashing hills down through here is really, really unique spot to be, and how high that is. It looks like a mini Adirondack mountain above you right there, And that bends just right around, and you take this West River around that whole entire hill to see on both ends of it. It's pretty awesome. So, yeah. Definitely a huge fan of Canandaigua. And you can even just explore out past there in that wildlife refuge. The High Tor region is what that is. And there's all these little nooks and crannies back there that you can just go in. Maybe you get not stuck, but you have to stop, turn around. But it's just really cool to kind of explore those regions. You got all kinds of wildlife around you. So huge fan of Canandaigua Lake. Yeah, and it's also one of the, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's the second highest lake, I believe, to live on or hold property on in the United States, second to Lake Tahoe, because the taxes on it. And there's a lot of stars that live on that lake or have some property on it. That really throws it up there. So, and also you have the CMAQ nearby. So there's people like Kenny Chesney, and I believe Tim McGraw has a spot on it too somewhere. Some other country singer somewhere. So that kind of throws things up as well. Yeah, so Naples Creek is, can you go back to that please? I'm sorry about that. Naples Creek is usually a fishing line there. People, there's a couple backyards through there. It's not meant usually for everyone to kayak through there, just because of the lot of log jams and stuff. So it's accessible for sure, but you got to know that you're going to get out of the boat 3 or 4 times, maybe. I went over one log jam where someone maybe didn't really feel that out. The water was lower. I'm definitely getting out, so the water levels change. We're in the spring, so it's nice to get it when it's high. But the West River, you can access it perfectly from just that other sawmill launch, which is going to be over on this side, and they have the roll-in launch there, and you can go all the way over to this over here, the Naples launch. So yeah, so you don't necessarily have to be on the Naples Creek.
Where's the Naples launch? Where on the map is it?
Okay, so this is your southwest end. There's a launch right there by there's a big barge there, your regular boat launch. Usually a steward there asking, where have your boats been? Have you washed them off? All those kind of questions. Someone from the DEC's parked there, checking boats. And then, so if you go from there and you just tuck in, the Naples launch is on the other side. I forget what road that is, but you just you go down across some Bob's and Ruth's, and you just keep going around and bending, and eventually about 1.5 miles later, you'll look to your left and you'll see this little channel come to a stop, and that's where they have that other launch right there.
So it's the West River.
Yes, exactly, yeah, it's really what it is, right. So, yep.
West River one gets quite weedy quite early on now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's,
the other one is a place called Woodville, which is on Route 21. So it's on Route 21 between Naples and Canandaigua. If you just go on there, there's a little town called Woodville, and then the Salt
Right.
Restaurant, and it's right by there.
yeah. There's a lot of water to explore back there, especially if you keep going underneath that, I think it's a Sunnyside Bridge, and you pop over and there's another body of water on the other side of that old rail bed there. Really, really cool stuff. So you could even get out of that rail bed and just pop in right there and just keep going down the West River and not even mess with the lake. So it's up to you if you guys want to wheel in or drag in, whatever you want to do. All right, we'll go over to Keuka. We've arrived at our lake where we're sitting right now. This is where I first took my blue boat. It's my wilderness system. And we know it's got 20 miles of shoreline and varies between Branchport and Penn Yan and Hammondsport. What I love about this lake, it's got different culture for each one. You kind of have more of a, more blue collar Branchport style right there, neighboring Prattsburgh. And then you have Penn Yan, it's neighboring Rochester more so, and kind of fits into that puzzle. And then you have down here is kind of a mix of the two. You have a small semi-rural district, but you also have some higher end places and things, and some people are attracted to this region as well. So I really love coming to Keuka. And this south end, I've had a lot of friends that Scott and I are friends with. We go down in Colebrook. So right where the depot is, we'll launch in right here, and then you keep going to the middle of the lake. You look up to the bluff and say see you later, and go right down into the Colebrook region there. And I was told there's probably a lot of log jams right now. After our winter, we had a lot of heavy snow and wind, and those things are sitting on top of that sappy bank that just waiting for something like that to happen. So I don't know what it looks like right now. I can't guarantee it's prime, but last August, my friend and I went back there quite a ways after a good rain, and because that's actually coming in, that water's coming into the lake. It's an inlet at a certain end, and we took our longboats way back there to where we're like floating in this much of water, just trying to get as far back as we could. But I'd like to go out there when it's really, really flooded and the ground's cold and it stays up. That's one of my favorite spots to go on Keuka. And it used to be cool to go down through there, and now we have the Snug Harbor open. So when you go, I should have put a map of Keuka on it, but we know what it looks like. So we'll come out of there and you go out to the right towards the beach and swimming area and around, and you would cross it right directly across from the Snug Harbor and go there, grab a burger, and then you tuck back into Hammondsport. And that was a really nice little day-long paddle. I had a couple of friends that knew of someone on the cottage there. We pulled off and relaxed with them, and yeah, just a neat little route. That really you got all the views you ever want, everything that's nice and tight between those that little channel there, but then also looking at the big lake and that big huge hillside on the far east side looking at you too. So that's a lot of fun. In the north end, in Branchport, we got Sugar Creek. I did the paddle 5K last year, and it's the second year I did it. And the water was higher this year, thankfully, because I could get back there. And there's a couple webs in there for some branches in the way, not really log jams, just kind of, looking at you like this. So you kind of slalom around them. But it's neat. It's not very long, but it's kind of a cool spot to go. You can tuck away from the big open water, and again, it extends it. You can come in out of Keuka Lake State Park right to it, and you can make a out and back, a nice fun time. And you also have it's the Finger Lakes Museum up there, and they host a lot of events as well. So they do a nice job up there with the kayak race and other events they have, maybe more around like guides and stuff like that. I think they have paddle guides and other kind of events like that. So if you wanted to go in a group and see what they had to say about what kind of environment systems up there, they talk about all the birds and the plants and stuff that survive in this area and thrive, and kind of what they do to help protect and preserve that. So that is Branchport. And then in Penn Yan, we know they have that launch up there, up in the north end, and there's also the outlet trail. There's all kinds of waterfalls back there that connect all the way out to Seneca Lake. With that, you can just keep paddling. There's quite a current sometimes coming out of there. I've seen a lot of really nice old boats, like wooden boats, come in there on a nice strong current day, and they can't turn in to catch that dock right there. And thankfully, someone's there to help them. But I almost thought I was going to see this old Chris Craft get just total cracked. I was like, this is not good. So, but paddling back there is not very far, but it's kind of a neat spot. If the water's up, there's a little bit of a marsh and swamp you can get back in and check that out. Of course, a lot of wildlife, and that's something cool too, to extend Keuka Lake. But I really like being in the big water in this lake too. Paddling around the bluff in that region is really neat. Paddled once between the Swits and the waterfront, was pretty cool, back and forth. Yeah, it's just, you can get every single aspect on this lake that you kind of want to get out of kayaking, whether you want to take it easy and stay in a sheltered bay, go down a channel, or go out there in the big wavy water and mess around and then gonna get that rise out of you too. So that is Keuka Lake. There is an app for this lake that gives you all the events that's going on. So I don't know if the Finger Lakes Boating Museum is hooked up with the Keuka Lake app. Maybe it should be, maybe it isn't. Yeah, exactly. So, and then the Finger Lakes Museum is on there, and of course all the wineries, restaurants, other events going on with your the boat, or not boat, but the plane events and things like that. So everything you need to know if you want to come out here and paddle and take that in, you'll be here at the same time. So it's always nice to go out for a paddle and know what else is going on. Besides that, it just extends your day. You can I like mini staycations, knowing what band's playing, what events going on. By the way, I'm going to kayak too, and that makes an awesome day. So, also the Finger Lakes Trail runs through here too. So if you wanted to park your boats, and I believe it's right out back this way, and then it comes back over to the other side of Hammondsport. That's kind of a neat, jaunt too. So something to kind of extend your adventure of the day. Big fan of that. So we'll go over to Juanito Omocha, which are not entirely Finger Lakes, but I think they deserve a mention. Two modest-sized lengths, about 3 miles each-ish. One is a little bit less populated than the other, so one's kind of a little more of a mini Canandaigua, and the other one's like a mini, I guess like Honeoye. It's got some cottage along it, kind of an easy shoreline, nothing really crashing into it as far as the hills around. But there's a really neat channel connecting the two, and I think it's like just less than a half mile, but it's all you need. It's pretty dredged out, and boats can get back and forth. All the fishing boats have a good time going between the lakes, and there's a place called Mosquito Island on it, and there's actually a rope swing, and sometimes they'll pull that out and you can run and jump out, and kids will do that. When I went by, it looked like it was just about as shallow as my waist, so it looked like a good time for the swing. But I always like to hammock camp on that sometime. That'd be pretty neat. But doing a loop around that and coming back out in the other lake and coming back in, there's DC just put a nice launch in there, the nice roller launch, right in between that channel, right off the bridge, off of County Route 230 or 23 there. So that's really nice. And that just kind of, invites the paddlers. It's a perfect paddling lake. And the boats don't typically get too fast there, which is also nice. You don't get all the wake, or you don't have to worry about, where you're crossing and all that. You're pretty well respected as a paddler, as a user of the lake. So that's always nice. Yeah, so that is Juanito Omocha in a nutshell. It's a quick jaunt just away from Keuka Lake, just over the hill in Bradford. So definitely strongly suggest that place if you haven't already done so. All right. Seneca Lake, big water. I definitely was so psyched to take my boat there for the first time and actually get on some really, really choppy stuff. You gotta be careful about coming out of that bottom south end channel. So what we did is, a friend of mine, we first went to the marina down the south end. There's a big long channel that comes down there. We get this place, this is my reference I'm using, but in SpongeBob the cartoon, there's this place called, because I teach elementary, so I know this stuff. There's a place called the Krusty Krab, and it's like this little bar restaurant. They serve breakfast, and people are in there doing their Bloody Marys in the morning. And I asked them, so can we launch? They're like, yeah, it's $10. I'm like, that's stiff, but okay, here you go. So to park there for the day and lose our launch and come back out of there, it was $10. Not a huge fan of that. There are some definitely better places to launch. We just thought of going there. So we came out of that south end, and a lot of boats are coming, big boats are coming into that channel to park. So the thing to be careful is really hugging the side and then really skirting it to get away from it, because it comes in like a mouth, and there's tugboats and everything you can imagine. It was definitely kind of a reality check. It was just where I was in reference to these guys and just really skirting the shore. So But then once you get out of that and you hug the east side and you go to this huge crashing cliff there, and there's a spot where like the American flag is painted up there, a cool spot to paddle to and just relax and just see like, wow, like this exists. And you can sit there and you look at Watkins Glen State Park from there and just all the other scenic areas and things going around the landscape. Definitely love the paddling of South Seneca Lake, and you can get out in that middle water where the wind is really just taking it up there, and you can get a nice, you know, moving up and down, which I like to do here and there, even though I like the channels and stuff like that that are calm and predictable. And this is that spot right there, and there's a nice dock. There were stairs that went here. You can imagine what happened to them. They came down pretty easily, and there's a cottage up there. So I'm assuming this might be the remnants of that right there in that grainy picture there. But so someone owns this land, but I don't think it's a big deal. Just pop there and just say, I'm hanging out for a second. You're not really trespassing. It's not like you're walking on their lawn. And then the north end, I just recently did over my spring break. I went up to Waterloo, and I had all plans of kayaking from there into the north end in Geneva, but got a late start, and the person I was with just wasn't really feeling the long jaunt out and back. Would have been 8 miles. So we just did like almost 2 miles and came back to where we started at this lock. So what's cool about Seneca is you can get out into the Erie Canal from, or go Erie Canal in. I have not gotten in a lock yet, which I want to do so bad, to just feel what that's like to go from spot to spot and have that water rush in and all that. But that lock was actually closed down. They're doing some repairs to it. It was completely dry in the bottom, which was also pretty cool to see. But there's a place called Fuzzy Guppies up here, and they sell boats, and they sell kayaks and any canoe, stand-up paddle boards, and they seem to be pretty reputable people that people go to, and you can rent and get out of there and go down around this channel through the Erie Canal, out towards the lake. So that's another kind of a place where you can go and get on the water there if you want to, you want to go kayaking there, but you're not really cool with the deepest lake of the Finger Lakes, and it's super big water, and you feel like an ant out there. That's kind of a good place to go. But if you want to feel like an ant, that's the place to go, because it's big. Yeah, so that is, and of course there's some things around it. Of course we talked about the Erie Canal, the Sampson State Park, which is like halfway in between. That's over here-ish. So somewhere to launch out of there. There's a lot of access sites. I believe there's I think there's 7 access sites on Seneca Lake. And I'll talk about a paddling app later if you guys have a smartphone to find these places. Very easy. Download the app, look at a region, it's there. It's, and we'll go over that later. But a lot of places to access Seneca Lake, and you can still always stay protected along the sides of the bays. Of course, you can go out in the middle, and there's all kinds of restaurants going around behind it. Yeah, so really, really good time. Watkins Glen State Park. We paddled at south end and went hiking along the gorge, and that was pretty neat. And that's part of the Finger Lakes Trail too, so which is also awesome. All right, so we'll go over to, I believe it's Cayuga, the next big lake. All right, so kind of big sister lakes right here. 40 miles long, also very deep. There's 14 access sites on this lake, which is amazing that I found on that app. I've not even gotten into this lake, so you don't see any of my own pictures here yet. And just looking above, like how big that water is, or if you're at Ithaca at a sporting event, which I've been, and you look up at it, it's just like, wow, that is a big lake. Not as much of crashing hills between. It's kind of more mellow, but it's still a really deep lake. And you have a small channel in the south end here to paddle into. In the north end, it's connected to one trip I really want to plan. When I first do this lake, I want to paddle in and around the Erie Canal, past some Montezuma Wildlife Refuge, and then you'll skirt that and you'll drop right in here in the north end, and you can get out there and play in the big water if you want, and then head back out. I don't know if you have to portage where that lock is or how they regulate that. I won't know until I get there, but I know you can access both, so it's pretty awesome. I went to the Wildlife Refuge after we paddled in Waterloo, just the first time to just kind of navigate it out, and I'm just craving to paddle in and around behind that, so that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, Cayuga Lake is quite a wonder for sure. Yeah, so that is Cayuga Lake. Kind of short and sweet on that, but it's big. It's got a couple options, and you can access it from the Erie Canal. So
If you do the Montezuma, if you want to go through that Montezuma, do you have to go through the lock?
I believe so. Well, if you want to go from the actual lake into it, you would go through the lock, but there's actually some access points above it. So I'm glad you asked that question. There are some access points. And I went to the wildlife refuge. They give you pamphlets there about where to access into the canal. And then there's a couple of different waterways that skirt around it. One that's closer, one's a more Erie Canal. So I think it was just more of like, you know, a two-way traffic situation where they have that, and one just closer to the actual refuge, which is nice. So yeah, good question. All right, we'll go over to the next one. Owasco. Some family members go here every year. I have not. This is another lake that I have not done yet. But I know they have 3 access launches. Again, they have Erie Canal access, which is also sweet. Not sure about locks. I think it kind of more just freely flows into it. I'm sure there are locks eventually, but nothing really to get out of the lake and get into the lake. And there's a small outlet in the south end. It doesn't go back very far, but it's just another kind of spot to tuck in there and do something different. Pretty wide open lake. As you can see, not really a lot of hills in between, so you're probably going to see a lot of wind on this lake, even though this picture doesn't really depict that. It picks a nice canoe paddled, perfect glassy water day, but I'd imagine that this lake's pretty windy. So you might see some really big water and waves and kind of eyebrow raiser kind of time, which I hope to have sometime. That really kind of is just a snapshot of Owasco. Don't really know a whole lot about it beyond that at this point. Forgive me for saying that because I wish I did know more, but definitely it's on my list to get out there and paddle. I keep my ventures somewhat kind of close, from Seneca on over, but we'll get out there at some point. All right, Skinny Atlas. My superintendent has a spot on this and brags about it all the time. I have yet to get out to this one either, but you have 4 access launches. Grout Brook comes out of the, the north end, and that's another kind of inlet they have that you could paddle up into or paddle down into the lake. The south end channel, of course. That's more of a docking kind of, like there's some marinas down there. It's not really like a specific channel. There's more like boats along the side parked. But again, cool to kind of just extend your day and do something different down there. Carpenter's Falls is a spot. There's a lot of state land around this region. I think this line is meant to kind of represent that, but there's a little bit of elevation change here. And so I imagine there's some hiking trails around that way. So paddling a nice loop around here and coming up and checking those falls out would be probably pretty cool. Nothing like, Letchworth or Watkins Glen, but, something on its own a lot of people probably don't see would be kind of neat to check out. Cliff Park, Thayer Park, and the Bear Park Reserve. They're just some different side shoots off of here. And they're not, I believe that Cliff Park is up here, Thayer Park was up that way. So in between different parts of the lake, there's different spots to check things out. And the launch is pretty evenly distributed. There's one here, one there, one here, and one up top. So you can access it from about any spot. And that's Skinny Atlas. Tisco, our last one. This picture here really intrigued me. I definitely have to get out here and check that out, as that literally looks like a sweet view. I feel like people always say like, I feel like I'm in the Adirondacks. And I'm like, I have to catch myself. I'm like, no, I just feel like I'm in the Finger Lakes, because it is awesome. It doesn't have to be compared to something. Yeah, it's similar, but it is what it is, and it's pretty impressive. So the south end is interesting because has anyone even been to this lake yet? No? Okay, I haven't either. And I'm just doing some research on it, and this here, probably at least 50 years ago, was dammed up. Part of this is a reservoir to Onondaga County. And the boats are allowed in it. There's cottages on it, which I can't believe, how they regulate that. And there's already a lot of talk about Onondaga and the water, Onondaga Lake and things like that, how polluted that is. So that probably just goes with the same old song and dance that those guys just don't really pay attention to what they're doing with their water. But that's my personal opinion. But there's a mini dam that connects here, and there's a small little opening where you can get back between. So this is pretty shallow. And this gets up to, I think it's up to at least 70 feet or so deep, Tisco does. And So you got to kind of have a cool little getaway down here. There's still some cottages, but they're a lot more sparse. So this is kind of a little more of a left alone area. And then you get back out of here, you get in some more, a little bit bigger water. But this isn't really too long of a lake. Of course, it's 5 miles of shoreline, so it's, you know, about my justification is like 2 Canadises long, I guess you could say. And it's about the same width. But definitely looks like a pretty intriguing lake. But yeah, so it definitely worth a paddle, I would assume, especially with that view right there in the bottom end. So that's Otisco Lake. Awesome. Any questions at this point, guys? We've got to the last lake. We've covered 12 different waterways. Anything? Appreciate me coming up here and just babbling on about some of the things that I like and some things that I've seen and some of the things I haven't seen. We'll check out the next slide I'm going to get you guys some information about GoPaddle launch sites. If anyone has their iPhone or their smartphone on them right now, if you want to look in your app store, search GoPaddling, that's where all these launch sites are, and they're all over the world. It's not just New York State. It's like anywhere you go, there's a little red pinpoint dot, and you just pick on that dot, and then you go there. It's very, and you can actually create them. So Loon Lake, down where we're from, just down the road, didn't even have one, so I put one at the Laugh A Lot. And I marched like Laugh A Lot, ask the owner that you're going to launch in, you're good to go, and you know, so it's almost like the Wikipedia of paddling. So you just kind of plug in, and you know, it's a cool community of people who just put in detailed records of where to go in. Every river, every pond, almost every pond, every reservoir, whatever it is, people paddle, they're pinpointing it. You know, so it's definitely informational. New Route is another one. I wish I had my iPad with me. I forgot that. But what that does is your Google Maps, and then you can do is you take your finger and you point where you're going to start, and you point another one. You just start making a constellation basically of where you're going, and it could be a regular real road. It could be you thinking, okay, I need to connect these roads, whatever, driving. But then you can do a non-tracing. Let me see if I can just bring it out and just show you guys a little bit around, because actually if you have an iPhone, it's a really, really cool app.
Which one?
It's New Route, yeah, New Route. If you have an iPhone, you can access this app for whatever reason. Anything else, Google Play Store does not work.
I don't see it though.
Okay, so let me, New Route on App Store.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get it.
Let me see, let me look at it real quick.
We've got Route 40 in South Jersey.
New Route.
And GoPaddle, I think, is GoPaddling.
Okay. Let's, yeah, GoPaddling, yes. GoPaddling, correct. Let me pull that app up. Sometimes they change the search for it, and that's annoying, but yeah, I definitely have that here. Let's see. Let me see if I can just put all the whole words together like it is in my screen here. New routes. I'm going to do a tracing app. Tracing. I'll have to look at why that's not coming up. Tracing, tracking. That's strange. I don't know if it's discontinued or what, but it still works for me. But if you can imagine, new route. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why it's. Nope. Actually, you know what? I'll pass it around, guys. I'll just pass this around. Let me get it open for you. I'll get you one of my spots open. Okay, I just did Canisius River 2 weeks ago, and you can see kind of how I coordinated it. And it wasn't tracking me, it was actually me zooming in and just pointing where we went every bend and around and drawing in where we went, and it tracks your mileage, which is nice. So if you're like, okay, so we're gonna go in this channel at Canisius, we're gonna come back out, go along the shore, cut over to the, you can keep this in earth mode too, so you don't have to look at like blank things on the screen. You can see where actual buildings are, but you're looking over to the beachcomber, go down to that, and where you launched, and you say, oh, that's a 3.5 mile pile. That's a pretty good day, that's fine. It's very useful. River data, if you run rivers, you want to run rivers, the Chemung, the Genesee, Canisteo River around here. I know it's not Finger Lakes, but it's also nice to know if the river's high there, the river might be high in those other channels we talked about, and getting in those nooks and crannies, which you normally can't do in the summer on a warm day in late spring. So river data lets you know, of course, the flow level and how fast it's moving. All those gauges, USGS has it on point, like to the day. So it's not like, oh, 2 weeks ago we had a lot of rain and it ran high, and then you get there and it's low. So it's very up to date, and it's free app. All these apps are free, and that's pretty awesome. And I put the Keuka Lake app in there just to remind to check that out for what we have here going on. We'll go to social media. In Facebook, I run a site. When I first got my kayak, I'm like, okay, I have a kayak, and I want to find other places. But I know there's a lot of people out there on this, out in this crazy web of social media and Facebook, that someone out there is going to have some input too, and I'm going to post what I have. But I created Western New York Kayaking, and there's like 500 members on there now. And what is community people? They post a good day, what they did, where they launched, what the conditions were like. And it just kind of, and then also people talk about boats, they talk about gear. People sell boats on there. It's kind of been a cool thing to start up, to see it take off like it did is pretty neat. Western New York Paddling is another group doing a similar thing. It's really just kind of the same brand. People are throwing conversation around about gear and where to go, and kayaking and canoeing all of upstate Western New York. That's also a great one. Again, same thing. And there's a kayak meetup group, which is right now a lot of teachers. And a friend from she works at Mount Morris. I believe she's a receptionist there, and she works in the offices. She coordinated this group for a bunch of these teachers to meet up. And so like every month there's a paddle. So we'll go to like Black Creek up in Rochester, go to Honeoye Bay, go to Hemlock, go to Canisius. We finish out at Keuka Lake at one of my former professors' houses, Rick Amundsen, who does some work with Sarah Williams as well at Mount Morris with their insurance companies and stuff. But he offers us to his cottage, and we paddle out there in the fall, and that's our last one. It's late September, so we're starting to see some tinge in the leaves, and that's always great too. It's one of my favorite times to paddle in the fall. But that's just another option you have too with the kayak meetup group. So if you look me up on Facebook or Instagram, I can point you in that direction to get involved with a meetup group. We're always looking for passionate people who are, share the same thing and like to meet new people, share the same passion. And yeah, so that's another option to meet some other people, do the cool things. And then if I go to Instagram, I post a lot of my adventures here and there as they're pushed out at Outside Adam. And I use Instagram more of a, Facebook is cool for those things, but I find it sometimes draining. I think Instagram, when we use social media, it's just more pictures and a couple small things about what they did, and a lot more positive than ranting and things, but that's just my opinion. But so yeah, some people post a good day, and there's some adventurous people on there on Instagram, and they do some really neat stuff, and it broadens my horizon about things I want to do, where people go. And I'm following people from Norway who are paddling in these exotic places, and I'm like, this is, so you almost kind of get to live vicariously through other people too sometimes. But keep yourself what you want too, keep it preserved. Not everyone's all into that, and I understand. I have my days where I'm glad I'm on airplane mode and have no service, and there's days I'm like so excited to like share my friends what I did. So that's kind of how that rolls. We have one more slide maybe. Maybe it's just no. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I thought I had one more in there. Interesting. I trust you. I was supposed to have been a big thank you slide for you guys coming out tonight. What the heck? Man, I spent about 5 minutes on that slide. No, I'm joking. So thank you for coming out. I appreciate it. You guys have been a great audience for me. It's my first time getting up to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. I know sometimes my passion gets in front of my words, and I know that I get excited about things, but thanks for hanging with me. I hope to see you guys all on the water sometime. If you are, hit me up. Like I said, you can contact me through here or my email. You guys get my email. Be happy to meet anyone out if you'd like to. Yes, question.
Did you grow up around here?
I did. I went to Hornell High School, and I live in Arkport, and went up to Brockport and taught, and then I went right back home and taught. So, yeah, so I'm pretty happy coming back here. There's a lot of pride for this area. I think there's a lot of great people here, and a lot of it's hidden away from the the highlight of the world, you know, like people think, oh yeah, I think the Adirondacks, or they think Rochester, or they think Syracuse, and they think Buffalo, but right here we have something special, a lot of cool things going on. One, just, you know, Scott showing me the boat museum, a lot of hard work that people just put in to roll up their sleeves as volunteers. There's a lot of that going on in this region. People do things because they like it, they like this area. I think it attracts just genuine people. There's really not like a status quo around here. You have people who are a little higher class, you might have people lower class, but I think they mesh within our lakes and what they want to do with their lives recreationally. And so part of what it is, you know, I'm running into people like, oh, I'm so bored, there's not much to do. I'm like, you live in the Finger Lakes, you know, there's just so much to do. And you've got to like all 4 seasons, you know, and I just kind of started taking up some cold water paddling, dabbling with that, and that's pretty cool. I'm a huge winter person, and I love kayaking, of course, so I kind of just started throwing the two together. Not saying I'm going to go winter kayaking, but there's just so much to do here, and you know, besides paddling and hiking, whatever else too, there's great establishments, and like I said, there's great people. So kind of like you guys for putting up with me for an hour. So no, but thank you very much for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you. Awesome. And if you guys ever wanted to, you can take my email down, email me, we could get an email chain. If there's anything new comes through my waves about a new app or a new place to go or how to get there, I'd be happy to share it with you guys because you know, you let me share this night with you guys, so thank you, appreciate it. My personal email is AJDWYR, not ER, but R, the number 1 at gmail.com. So that's AJDWYR1 at gmail.com. So if you guys want to contact me that way, or up here on the board, that's fine too, Adam Dwyer, and then point you in the direction of Western Europe Kayaking if you want to look it on there. So, awesome. So, all right, cool. Yes, question?
Would you be willing to share it?
Oh yes, yeah, get that email to me, and I will share you guys out the whole entire presentation for sure. Yes. So, all right, yes.
You had some pictures of like brochures that looked like from the DEC?
Yeah, so it's weird because I found some of those on their site, but then I didn't find them elsewhere. So it was very inconsistent. So some spots, they're like all these access points, all the fish in it, how deep it is, great stuff. And then it like wouldn't show up for other lakes. So I could share that. I could share what I have with you guys, especially. You know, I'll just share those pictures in there with, if you email me, just give me the run of the things you have on file. But I just kept looking for every lake that we had, and I'm like, you know, they just kind of fallen off. So it's strange how that was. Yeah.
So that was on the DEC website?
Yeah, DEC website. Yep, you just search the lake and put DEC in there, and it'll come up. And so those ones where you saw the teal water, that's what would come up there, and some of those other ones would come up with the extra launch points and all the other stuff, and it'd be attached underneath like access points or something, and then they weren't in the other ones. So it's, I don't know how they updated it. Probably did a long time ago. They got on that project and like, okay, we're gonna do all these lakes, and they got to 6, and then they stopped.
Well, we sell the books upstairs.
Okay.
Paddling.
Oh, great.
Lakes.
Oh, yeah, all right. Oh, and you know what's missing too is those 2 books, the Western New York Paddling and Paddling the Finger Lakes, the Quiet Waters of the Finger Lakes. Those were 2 awesome books. Short thing here, big part of me going to and more adventure and those things is I broke my neck 3 years ago now. I was skiing, and I'm very lucky. I was in Halo for 3 months, but I read those books and I just dreamt about all these different places, and some of those pictures you saw of those access points, that's what I was doing when I was laid up. And so a lot of this stuff comes from just sitting down for pretty much 3 months until I could get back to being me. And since I have been able to do that, I've just been running at it. I haven't really stopped. Like I said, the kayak stay on the boat, so. But yeah, that's how that kind of happened, so. Yeah.